Come on in, y'all. Come on in. We need to talk about this South Park episode. This is almost like getting back to the roots. Back when this channel was doing episode reviews of different TV shows and movies. And now we got to talk about politics because Trump. Well, this is almost like taking us back to the good old days. What was that, 6 months ago? I cannot wait to dissect the part or parts that have to do with Donald Trump. First and foremost, we know South Park has never shied away from making any kind of commentary. They punch and they punch hard at any and everything. So you would have to be pretty thin skinned to let being roasted on South Park get under your very thin skin. And I got a strong feeling we're going to see a big reaction from this White House. This episode starts off by offering its commentary on the cancellation of NPR, which is National Public Radio, which is where all the woke liberals go to bitch and moan. Well, Cartman is freaking out because it's been canceled because that is his favorite show to wake up to in the morning and laugh at. Then the principal of the school literally wants to bring Jesus, not the Bible, not the Ten Commandments, literally Jesus in every classroom in South Park Elementary. And now, y'all know that Paramount is the home of South Park, especially since maybe a couple of days ago at this point, they have signed a deal with the creators of South Park. $1.5 billion to exclusively air all of the new episodes and the back catalog. So if you want to watch South Park, you have to watch it on Paramount/CBS. That becomes important in this episode and in real life because remember earlier this year, Trump sued Paramount/CBS over a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, where he says that they made Kamala look smart. How dare they? How dare they? And Paramount has just been basically kissing the ass of Donald Trump. Well, this episode of South Park addresses that brilliantly because the residents of South Park have decided, you know what? We are through. They try to put Jesus in the school. They didn't cancel NPR and all these other things this government is doing. We are protesting against this government. And that's when Jesus comes and tells them, y'all might need to stop. See, I don't even want to be here, but I might get sued because Trump can bribe or sue anyone, which is basically insinuating from Jesus himself that the only reason that Paramount settled these lawsuits is because they need to be on Trump's good side so this merger can go through, right? This merger has been going on for a year and some change. So if they would have just got off their ass in 2023, 2024, this shit would be over with by the time Trump got into office. But no, no, no. Y'all know how we got to pussyfoot around with things. And now they put themselves in a position where they have to negotiate with the fucking terrorists. There was even a scene in this episode of 60 Minutes to show that Trump had so many problems with kind of waffling around the subject of South Park's citizens railing against Donald Trump. And they were doing all of this like him and Han instead of reporting the news. Man, Ish was brilliantly done, because that is exactly what not just 60 Minutes, but a few other media organizations, newspapers, universities, you name it, are capitulating to Donald Trump. And they look like freaking idiots. It's like that episode of The Twilight Zone. If you are of a certain age, you'll remember the episode. I think it's called A Good Life. And it had the little boy, and he basically was holding his entire town hostage because he could read their minds. And if they thought something that he didn't like, he would send them out to this old really crazy, spooky, creepy looking cornfield. I'm going to talk about that episode in another video because that episode needs some attention. Anywho, the thing that was the most important, besides all of this meta commentary around basically speed running Trump's second administration is an appearance from a little mini Trump himself, basically saying, we got a small man with a little bitty small weenie, and he is holding the world hostage. And he's also in bed with Satan. You heard me. He's in bed with Satan. And we have seen this trope before from South Park, where the creators have put Satan in bed with one of the worst human beings in the world, which at that time was Saddam Hussein. And he and Saddam Hussein were in bed together and make in a make believe relationship. Well, now that Saddam Hussein is gone, Satan has come back to be in this same type of relationship with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, throughout the episode, is trying to get Satan in the mood, but Satan is just so upset. Satan is saying, hey, look, I just don't want to do anything with you right now. You remind me of a guy I used to date, meaning Saddam Hussein. And he's also saying, I keep hearing that you're on this Epstein list. This episode is so timely. It is exactly what we need in this time, because there are a bunch of people in this world who aren't going to listen to me or you when we try to tell them that Trump is definitely on this list, right? They're not going to listen to us. But if they see it on South Park through a lens from some people who are absolutely not woke, 100% not quote unquote woke, if they see the truth being satirized by a show like South Park, it might get through to them how stupid they're being over believing or even having reservations about whether or not Trump is on this list. At the end of the day, the town of South Park in the fictional South Park universe decides that, you know what, we don't want it with Trump. He's too strong. He's too powerful. He can sue you to death. He can bribe anybody. And he is so freaking egotistical that he'll do it. He'll do it just to ruin South Park and to get them canceled, which might just happen. But anywho, staying in real world, in real world for a second, we know that Donald Trump does weaponize lawsuits and does weaponize the DOJ and all of these things, and he bullies corporations, schools, networks, the press, anybody into doing his bidding. Well, South Park, the town in the fictional South Park universe, have decided they don't want this. So they have made a deal. And the deal is we have to give Trump, I think it was $3 billion or something like that, not billion, million, $3 million. And they have to do these public service announcements. And this is where it just got so delicious for me. Now, let me set the table for why it's so delicious. Y'all know that Donald Trump likes to share these little AI videos. Specifically, the latest one was of former President Barack Obama being arrested and taken to prison. They got him in the orange jumpsuit and everything. And Trump shared this video. The music YMCA is playing in the background. Trump thought this was so funny. AI videos. Then he is like trying to make himself like the AI president. So now he's trying to push legislation through to assist AI and to having very little oversight. And then South Park does this. A naked AI Trump is like basically wandering through the desert, proclaiming his love for America, all while taking off his clothes because he's so fucking hot. He's taking off his clothes out here in the desert, just wandering around in this desert. And he takes his pants off because that's the last thing that he has to take off. And his little bitty weenie starts talking to the camera. Look, if you ain't seen South Park in 150 years, this one is worth watching first and foremost. And secondly, when that little weenie started talking to the camera, I almost fell out the damn bed. That's how funny it was. and it's kind of like satirizing those commercials. He gets us. Have you ever seen those? And I know if you watch sports or the Super Bowl, there are commercials that is bought some by some religious group, and it's usually pushing a biblical message. And at the end, there's like this Jesus, white Jesus, is like the words "He gets us." Like white Jesus understands us, y'all. White Jesus gets us. The end of the episode of South Park was like a parody of those commercials, except for it's not Black Jesus, it's Orange Jesus Trump. Anyway, you might have to watch it because I might not be doing it any favors in my telling of how this story went or how the ending of this episode went. But I'm gonna tell you why it's important overall. The satire in South Park, and in fact, satire and parody of all types, is important to reflect the current fears of the United States of America. And this is not something that is exclusive to Donald Trump. South Park and shows like it have always been raising or have always been sounding the alarm about things that are going on in the country in a funny way. Why is everybody trying to text me right now? Why? South Park and shows like it have always put a spotlight on what's going on in American culture in a funny way, but in a way so that somebody who has not gotten the word now will hear it in a way that is not uh, threatening to them. Satire is always supposed to reflect current fears. And right now, our fears in media censorship and religious pressure in school, in the ethics of AI and deepfakes, all of that should be of paramount importance to us in the United States of America. Yet, I can guarantee you, and I know at least one or two people myself, that if things like this wouldn't happen in pop culture, they would never hear about the threats to our own freedoms right here in the United States because they ain't gonna watch the news. But I can bet you, almost guarantee you, that these same people will watch South Park. And that is how they get their news. I have people in my life, the way that I talk about politics and all of these things, the things that I talk about in my videos, they don't even hear them. And these are people in my life. They don't want to know what's going on in the world. So, the way that they heard about the Epstein list is through a show like South Park. Then they call me like, "What's this Epstein list?" And that gives me an opportunity to not look at them in judgment, even though I do, but it's to explain what's going on, because sometimes this is the only way that you get people's attention. So if we allow a president who himself shares deep fakes and AI generated content, and he has no problem defaming people, putting out misinformation and disinformation, when you have a president like that, there has to be something equally as loud to combat it. And if you allow him to take those things away, we are basically handing over our freedoms. So nothing should ever be too sacred for satire. Nothing should ever be too sacred to hear the other side of the argument. This episode of South Park wasn't just another Trump roast. It is a metaphor for how fragile our satire, our journalism, and our media institutions have become. It's a sad state of affairs when the people with the biggest balls in the room make cartoons for a living. And they're not afraid to tell you that a man as insecure as Donald Trump, a little man, a fat man with the tiniest peen, is bullying 346 million people. It takes South Park to do it without fear. I don't mean that $1.5 billion contract is safe. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Doesn't mean that merger is safe. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But some things are bigger than capitalism. Over here on UnWrapped, it has always been about the intersection between pop culture and common sense. And I've always invited you to join me here so that we can talk and share information, even funny information, and not tea. I don't do tea. You deserve so much more than just tea. And if you've enjoyed this little episode, please hit that subscribe button. Help me get to 5,000. We are moving on up. We're moving on up, y'all. I want to get to 5,000, and I would like for you to join me there. Hit the like button if you like this video. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Every click, every share, y'all make us fly. Together we shine brighter than the sky. From shout outs to comments, we see every word. Y'all the reason Tasha's voice gets heard. Subscribers growing, lighten up the day. With your support, we'll never fade away. Thank you, UnWrapped fam, you keep us strong. Keep us strong. Your love and your faith help us move along. Help us move along. Every click, every share, y'all make us fly. Y'all make us fly. Together we shine brighter than the sky. Brighter than the sky. Roll call for the peeps who keep it alive. Patron super chats all here on the drive. Tasha got the mic, but you fuel the vibe. This channel's a party and y'all keep it live.
Monthly supporters, give y'all a cheer. Live stream energy, you bring the gear. Every episode's magic, cause of y'all's touch.